Hey everybody, and welcome to some RPG Horror Story Cringe with DnD Doge. In today's episode, we start off with an all-caps cringe, with a story about a player that just won't stop hitting on his real-life sister during Dungeons & Dragons. Then, we have a tale about a player that has his character's backstory destroyed by a vindictive dungeon master, and more. So, without further ado, let's get right into these stories. That Guy Derails Campaign to Seduce His In-Real-Life Sister by Reddit user ExpressAmphibian16. So, I play with a group of people that I more or less have known since high school and college. The DM was one of my best friends since we were 14. Most of us are guys, but there are two girls, that guy's sister, playing a paladin, and my high school friend, playing a ranger. There were three other guys at the table. That guy, fighter, and barbarian. I'm just going to refer to most of these people by their class, since there's no way in hell I'm using real names. Anyway, we hadn't played D&D in a while because of the pandemic, and even afterwards, we all kind of had hectic schedules because of school and work. That guy's sister and barbarian were still in college. But a couple of months ago, we decided to run a homebrewed campaign that was supposed to be like a mix between Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. In this one, Frodo and Sam actually do the dirty. The campaign was supposed to be very dark, and I was excited. Well, we get to session 0 and 1, and that guy's sister introduces us to him. He was her older brother, and clearly socially awkward. He always seemed like the younger brother, despite being 7 years older, but he seemed like a good guy at first. So, we get into the game, and we start to see the red flags with this guy, almost immediately. He was constantly threatening NPCs, even going as far as to murder a random drow. He is supposedly a lawful good wizard, but he claims that murdering this drow is a lawful good act, because drow are an evil race by definition. This was blatantly untrue in our campaign, but he went all rules lawyer on us when we tried to tell him that this wasn't the case. He also saves body parts of the NPCs and creatures that he or the party kills, including the testicles. He also constantly flirts with Paladin, his sister's character. We just kind of assumed it was his character's decision, and she would pretty much go along with it, and we didn't question it too much. Until the dumbass, level 1 wizard with no armor attempts to block an effing firebolt to defend his full HP paladin sister, who is a whole ass level above him. So obviously, he effing dies, and we almost got TPK'd because of this. We ended up having to barely flee the encounter and leave him to the ogre thinker to kill him. Then he rolls up an artificer, and surprise surprise, he is basically the exact same character, except he dropped the pretense of being lawful good and just went full murder hobo. His flirtation with the paladin intensified until he died again, and again, playing the same paladin-loving murder hobo over and over. He even got to the point where he would basically murder anyone who even spoke to her. At this point, we start thinking that this is just getting weird. How many characters can you go through before this whole "it's what my character would do" excuse works for hitting on your sister? We end up having a little talk with him about his characters and try to gently steer him into playing something different or even flirting with another character. He got really defensive and pissy and basically gave us the whole "it's what my character would do" excuse. We didn't want to push this or cause more problems, so we just let it go. Well, he kept on escalating until he was making sexual comments about our character. Sexual content is fine in our game, but the context was making this increasingly weird. Eventually, he made a comment that was clearly related to her in real life appearance and not the character. So we ended up messaging her to ask her if she wants us to kick him out, but she said no. Her response was just that he is just really into the roleplay, and he really likes you guys too. Yeah, because mindlessly murdering every NPC that mildly annoys him is totally quality roleplay. This story doesn't have a dramatic ending with the problem player going full incel and getting kicked or anything. We're pretty much just playing with that guy and trying to keep him from murdering too many important NPCs and ignoring him when he occasionally tries to, badly, be an obnoxious rules lawyer or hit on his sister's character. Thankfully, the DM has basically caught on, and most of his shenanigans just lead to him dying. He is now a full 3 levels behind the rest of the party, and we pretty much go into combat as if he's not even there. TLDR, socially awkward that guy plays a murder hobo that dies constantly due to his own dumbass decisions and won't stop hitting on his sister's character. He is also a really bad rules lawyer when he thinks that the rules suit him. He is now 3 levels behind the rest of the party due to constantly dying and is pretty much useless in combat. Good God, this story started to lean more into Game of Thrones territory than Lord of the Rings. Just one time having your character hit on your sisters is kinda odd, but to have 2, 3, and so on continue that trend is pretty freaking sus. That combined with the murder hobo antics and rules lawyering, it makes me wonder why they haven't kicked this dude. Perhaps it's because Paladin is their friend, and they fear that if they kick him, that she'll leave too. Though I have to say that it's also kinda sus that Paladin doesn't seem bothered by all of her brother's roleplay. This is definitely one of the weirder stories that I've read in a bit, and I think we need a kitty palate cleanser after that one. There we go. That's a bit better. Now, let's move on to the next one. My character was killed while I was away. But wait, there's more. By Reddit user, Thurakia. This was a few years ago, pre-COVID days if you can believe it, so I'm a little foggy on some details. I'll be using silly names for anonymity's sake and to help keep my spirits up, as this story's a bit of a sore spot for me. Content warning for brief mention of SA. So here's our cast. Nobble. A little cold to start with, but seemed fine after a bit. Also the DM. Tiffy. Generally kind, but can get a little emotional about her characters. Plays a tiefling monk whose wife was kidnapped. Bongo. Pretty chill. Plays a warlock cursed with a magical disease. Rhombus. Had his head in the clouds a little, but a good player. Plays a dragonborn wizard-like class. Some sort of homebrew investigator. I think there was another 1 or 2 players, but they aren't central to the conflict, so it's not super important. Some background. I was also running a game for the group, including DM Nobble. This was all over Discord and Roll20, because I'm in a different time zone. I'm a forever DM, so I was pretty excited when I got the chance to finally play again. I rolled up an assassin rogue who was brainwashed by a cult as a teenager and used as an assassin against his small village home. The cult had been wiped out, and he'd been wandering for a bit before he came back to his senses on the other side of the world from his tiny village, with almost no memory of what happened while he was brainwashed. He's convinced that he probably killed several of the people in this village while he was being controlled by the cult, and fully blames himself. Simply put, simple farm boy to brainwashed assassin to guilt-ridden wanderer who just wants to help. So here's the story. The first few sessions go mostly without issue, as we escort a princess NPC who was captured by a powerful fae back to her family. As we escort her, we learn that she's been gone for a while, that she's a little uncertain if she wants to return, as she didn't care for politics, and would probably be married off to a rival kingdom to keep some sort of peace. My character, being a farm boy, didn't understand the big picture, and was more concerned with what the princess herself wanted, so they got along well. When time came to leave the princess with her family, as the party had decided that helping her would be too much of a risk, and she wasn't sure she wanted to escape. She gave my character a flower. I'm pretty sure there was a romance option there. But as my character was a farm boy who, 1. didn't feel like he deserved a happy relationship because of his guilt, 2. was lured into the brainwashing cult by his first crush, and 3. was implied to have been SA'd by the demon/fallen angel that the cult was devoted to. So he naturally, politely declined, which DM Nobble didn't seem to like much, and the princess turned cold. DM Nobble later mentioned that it was a big social faux pas to decline a gift in that part of the world, and seemed to expect me to know that. The thing is, this is a completely homebrewed world, and though the others had played in a full campaign of it, I had only been playing this game for about 3 to 4 sessions by that point. And even if I knew that, there was no way my farm boy from the other side of the world would know. Things seemed to calm down after that though, and even though I was disappointed to have lost a roleplay opportunity, I was still excited for the rest of the game and what it would bring. I had a couple of cool moments where my character stealthily killed a couple of enemies from the outside of a moving train, and had made friends with an imprisoned person who had a much more progressed version of Bongo's character's disease, which brought on more roleplay opportunities. Things seemed fine for a bit, and my character was even getting to know Tiffy's character, who was starting to let down her walls, as her character was afraid of men, though I can't remember why. Alas, it was not to last, and as we were traveling on a country road, we came across some nasty monsters towards the end of the session. Because a couple of us were going to be away, DM Nobble said that the next game would be a roleplay only session, and would be different characters in a historical setting, which was neat. Unfortunately, the night before game day, one of my friends was feeling pretty awful, and I stayed up a bit late comforting them, and I didn't wake up in time for the game. Though I figured it wouldn't be an issue, seeing that it wasn't a super important session, and half of us were away anyway. But boy was I wrong. DM Nobble, last minute, decided that she wanted to work out some frustration with combat, and switched back to the main game with only 2 of the 5 players. And when I woke up, different time zones remember, I was told my character had been killed. I'm pretty adverse to conflict, and didn't want to lose my only game that I was playing in, so I tried to look past it, hoping that the DM would have a plan to bring me back, maybe even adding to the story. I was almost right. The DM brought all the characters into a weird pocket dimension, with the world's trickster god there. To clarify, my character's backstory had no connection to the trickster god, only to the demon/fallen angel that the cult was devoted to. The trickster god asked if my character thought he deserved to live. Now, a couple of things go through my head. 1, my character still hasn't overcome his guilt. It's only been like 6 sessions tops, and there hadn't been any story around my character yet. And 2, this was a trickster god. Who knows what he'd do if I'd said yes? What he'd do if I say no? Or if what I said would even matter? My character, reminder, a farm boy who hasn't seen much magic, let alone a god, answers with a nervous, non-committal, I don't know. Apparently, that's not good enough, and the trickster god sends us back, and while I'm brought back to life, I only have a few hours to live. Crap. Well, maybe we can still salvage it. So we rush to the nearest people who we think can help, some witches. But they say they can't do anything, and my character dies again, with no chance to do anything. Then the trickster god comes back and tells me that, in no uncertain terms, my whole backstory is a lie, and that it was all implanted in my brain by him. That there was no cult, no assassinating, and no satisfactory resolution. Just, oh, it was all a dream. Naturally, I wasn't super happy about this. Shortly after the session, the DM left the chat, and because I can be a bit shy, and the DM Nobble could be pretty staunch, I asked the other players, who knew her better than I did, how to best approach the situation. They didn't really have any advice, so I just decided to sleep on it and talk to Nobble in the morning. Overnight, news of my dissatisfaction made its way to Nobble, and I woke up to a message from her accusing me of gaslighting her friends, banning me from the chat, and blocking me before I could even respond. That did not feel great, as not only had I lost the only game I was playing in, all the players were also playing in my game, which I had to put a lot of effort into making for them, and they were like 90% of my friends at the time. They were unwilling to let me back into the group, but I still wanted to know what I did wrong, so I could at least be better in the future. Tiffy was the only one from the group who hadn't blocked me, so I apologized and asked what exactly I had done, as Nobble was pretty vague, but Tiffy was just as vague, and then blocked me shortly thereafter. I am autistic, so I'm not the most socially adept, but I really don't see what I did wrong here, if anything. It hardly matters now, especially after how long it's been, but I suppose it's worth chucking in, and am I the a-hole at the end here? I hope you guys at least get some entertainment out of this nonsense. I'd say most definitely not the a-hole here. It sounds like this DM just didn't like the fact that OP's character didn't take the planned route that she had for him with the princess character. And even though she seemed to get over it, when OP overslept just one time for a game that wasn't even the main campaign, she decided to target him by just killing off his character while he wasn't there. Then to just bring back the character only to kill him off again and say that OP's backstory, that OP probably spent a good deal of time coming up with, never really happened? I can understand OP's frustration with this, and can see why he asked the other players how to approach the DM about it, especially seeing how she seemed touchy. But of course, someone tells DM, and she kicks OP out for gaslighting? A lot of people use that term nowadays, but I don't think they understand what it means. It sucks that OP did lose some players for his campaign, but in the end, this just showed OP that they weren't really his friends. And playing Nobble's game sounds like a nightmare, with a DM that will punish you for not doing what they have planned for you. Hopefully, OP has found a decent game to play in since then. Let's move on. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to get a steed in D&D? By Reddit user Cam Crux. I, 20-year-old male, play D&D once a week with a group of 8 people and our DM, 30-year-old male. A couple of sessions ago, we were offered a chance to buy steeds to move around more quickly. Most of the party decided to buy one, but I held out alongside another member of our party. I didn't see the need to spend what little gold we all had on a steed, when the DM had specifically stated that he would never make us lose a quest because we took too long to get there. So the other party member and I decided to continue on foot. Fast forward to last week's session, and we got another opportunity to buy steeds. I hadn't changed my mind, but the only other member who didn't have one did. She bought one, leaving me being the only holdout. My party kept trying to convince me to buy one, but I kept my resolve. That is, until my DM asked to see me in the other room. We left the room, and he tried to convince me to change my mind. During this conversation, he said that he would end my character if I didn't cave. Now, my DM is a guy who likes to joke around a lot, so I wasn't 100% sure if that was a joke, or if he meant it. He even said that being the only person holding out makes me an a-hole, so I decided to cave in, because I really don't want him to end my character. But it really doesn't sit well with me that my DM threatened to end my character. I am relatively new to D&D, with this being my first campaign, so I don't really know all of the etiquette of the game. So, am I the a-hole? TLDR, I refused to buy a steed, which caused my DM to threaten to end my character. I think OP may have been a bit of an a-hole here, for just outright refusing to buy a steed. Just a little. That would do nothing but make things harder for the DM to have all of the party so far ahead and then have to wait for the player to arrive on foot. I can understand partially, as OP stated that he's new to D&D, and I'm sure that we all had those moments where we did something stupid when we were first starting out. In which case, the DM should have talked to OP and explained why it would make things way more complicated than it needed to be above table, instead of threatening to just off his character, whether it be joking or not. Though I don't understand why the party just couldn't have 2 people per steed. That seems like the easiest way to solve this issue, especially if some of the party are smaller folk. Though, what do you guys think on this one? I'd love to know. But that will do it for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.